Imagine, dedicating yourself to deep focus, finding that absolutely perfect secluded spot for your most important work, only to find it's infested with, like, terrifying unseen forces. What would you even do? Our deep dive today unpacks this really extraordinary story from ancient texts. It takes us from fear, even physical illness, all the way to profound enlightenment. And it's all thanks to a surprising kind of weapon.
We're diving into a narrative known as the Āraddhavipassakabhikkhuvatthu. It's a bit of a mouthful, but it basically translates to the story of the monks who initiated insight.
Okay.
And this account comes straight from Buddhist scripture. It's all about these 500 monks and their quest for spiritual liberation.
And this isn't just some dusty old tale, right? I mean, it feels like a powerful guide. It helps us understand how our inner states can literally transform our outer reality.
Exactly. And how real protection comes from within.
And how wisdom often gets forged, not when things are easy, but, in the face of unexpected adversity. There are some incredible metaphors here that feel just so relevant today.
Definitely. So the story kicks off in Savatthi, an ancient city. You've got these 500 monks.
Okay.
And they've received specific meditation instructions right from the Buddha himself.
Wow. Directly from the source.
Directly. Their goal is arahantship. It's the highest stage of enlightenment in Buddhism.
Right.
So with these instructions, they're ready to undertake what's called samadhi. Think of it as intensive ascetic practice, monastic discipline.
Serious stuff. So they needed the right place for this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
They were deeply committed. And to find the ideal spot, they journeyed a really long way, 100 yojanas.
100 yojanas. That's what, hundreds of miles?
Easily. Hundreds of miles, likely on foot. Just imagine traveling that far simply to find a quiet place to meditate.
That's incredible dedication.
It is. They eventually arrive at this large village looking for a suitable retreat for the rainy season.
And how were they received?
Oh, the villagers were incredibly welcoming. They saw the monks, immediately offered them seats, served them food, rice porridge is mentioned. Yeah, and when they heard the monks needed a place for the 3-month rainy season retreat, the Temasa, the villagers were actually thrilled. They invited them to stay the whole time, hoping, to deepen their own spiritual practice by having the monks nearby.
That's lovely. So did the villagers have a place in mind?
They did. They pointed them towards what seemed absolutely perfect, a large, beautiful forest grove nearby.
Ah, the classic serene forest grove. Sounds ideal.
You'd think so. The monks accepted, entered the forest, all set for their retreat. What they didn't realize, though, was that this grove was already very much inhabited.
Inhabited by who? Hermits?
Not exactly. By devas.
Devas. Like deities or nature spirits?
Yes, something like that. Divine beings living in the trees in the forest. Now, these devas, initially, they weren't hostile at all.
Oh.
No, in fact, they showed great respect. They saw the monks as virtuous ones and felt it was, improper for them, the devas, to stay up in the trees with their families while these holy men were meditating down below.
Okay, that sounds quite considerate, actually.
It was. So out of deference, they all came down to the ground level.
So far, so good. What went wrong then?
Well, they made a bit of a critical miscalculation. The devas just assumed the monks would stay for maybe one night, then move on, like passing travelers.
But the monks were planning on the full 3 months for the rainy season retreat.
Exactly. So day after day passes, maybe half a month goes by.
Okay.
And the devas are still stuck on the ground with their families. And for them, this became really, really uncomfortable. The text says, painful.
I can almost picture it like having guests who overstay their welcome, but on a sort of divine level.
Kind of, yeah. And when they realized the monks were there for the long haul, for the full 3 months, their discomfort turned into, desperation.
Okay, now I see where this is going.
Right. They decided basically, we've got to do something to make these monks leave.
And that's when the haunting starts.
That's when it starts. The devas began using some pretty terrifying tactics.
Like what?
The texts mention them manifesting headless corpses, kabandani, these spectral bodies without heads.
Yikes.
And making these horrible, inhuman sounds. And not just at night. During the day, too, wherever the monks were, resting places, walking paths.
Everywhere they went, basically. Constant harassment.
Constant. And these frightening experiences, they weren't just mental. They started having a physical effect. The monks developed illnesses, sneezing, coughing fits, things like that, just worn down by the stress and fear.
Understandable. I mean, headless bodies and creepy noises would probably make anyone sick.
Definitely. So The monks talked amongst themselves. They discussed the headless things they were seeing, the sounds they were hearing.
Mm.
And the conclusion was pretty unanimous. This place is bad news. It's causing us discomfort. Quite the understatement.
Yeah, just a bit.
So they decided, we have to get out of here. Let's go back to the Buddha.
Can't blame them one bit. So they trek all the way back to Savatthi.
All the way back, they paid their respects to the Buddha and laid it all out. Venerable Sir, they explained, we encountered these terrifying objects of experience.
Yeah.
These things were happening.
And it made us really uncomfortable.
Yeah. Basically, yes.
Mm-hmm.
They explained the situation.
And the Buddha's reaction must have been sympathetic, right?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. His response was completely unexpected.
Oh.
He just looked at them and said point blank that they must go back to that very place.
Go back to the place with the headless corpses and scary noises.
Exactly. A complete curveball.
I can just imagine their faces. They must have protested.
They did. They basically said, Venerable Sir, with all due respect, that's impossible. We can't go back there.
Yeah, no kidding.
And then came this profound revelation. The Buddha said to them, monks, you went without a weapon.
A weapon?
Now, he said, take a weapon and go.
A weapon? What on earth? They're monks. They probably thought he meant swords or something.
That must have been the confusion, yeah. They asked him straight up, what weapon, Venerable Sir?
And the answer?
The Buddha then recited the entire Metta Sutta. You might know it as the Karaniya Metta Sutta.
The Discourse on Loving Kindness.
Exactly. He recited the whole thing and then instructed them. Chant this together. Starting from just outside the forest grove, keep chanting it as you enter your dwelling place.
So the weapon was loving kindness. Metta.
That was the weapon.
Wow. Okay. So what did the monks do? Did they buy it?
They paid their respects again, turned around, and headed back towards that same forest.
Back they go, armed only with a chant. That takes some serious faith. And maybe a little desperation.
I imagine so. And this time, as they approached and entered the grove, they started chanting the Metta Sutta together. The text specifies gazaje, a group recitation.
So picture this group of monks walking back into this terrifying place, just chanting about loving kindness.
And the result, it was immediate and profound.
What happened?
As the sound of the Metta chant spread, all the devas throughout the entire forest grove, their minds just shifted. They received a mind of loving kindness. Metta Sutta.
Just like that. The hostility vanished.
Completely vanished. Replaced by warmth, benevolence. It's like the chant disarmed them. Not by force, but by changing their hearts.
So, from terrifying spirits to friendly hosts.
Pretty much. That's quite the turnaround, isn't it?
It really is. Loving kindness. The ultimate ghost repellent. So, what did the now friendly divas do?
Well, instead of scaring them, they welcomed the monks.
Wow.
They came forward respectfully, asked to take their bowls and robes, offered to massage their tired feet and bodies.
Oh, way.
Yes. And they even arranged well-organized protection for the monks, guarding them while they meditated. The text paints this amazing picture of the devas sitting around the monks like a wheel formation, totally attentive and supportive.
Like a protective circle of friendly spirits. That's incredible.
It really is. So instantly, no more inhuman sounds, no more headless apparitions. The forest became utterly peaceful.
And that peace, that safety, I imagine that was exactly what the monks needed for their minds to finally settle.
Exactly. Their minds became one-pointed, ikaga, focused, clear, undistracted.
So now they could actually do the practice they came for.
Precisely. With their minds calm and focused, the monks settled into their resting places and directed their attention to vipassana insight meditation.
Okay, deep insight practice. What were they focusing on?
They started to establish a perception of arising and passing away within themselves, observing the constant change, the impermanence of all phenomena, moment by moment.
Kaya-vaya, seeing things arise and cease.
That's the one. And this led them to a really key insight, even before the Buddha spoke again.
What was that?
They cultivated this deep understanding by reflecting. This body is like a potter's vessel.
Like a clay pot.
Exactly. Because of its breaking nature, its inherent impermanence, it's fragile. It won't last.
That's a powerful image. It's not just saying we're fragile, is it? It's like realizing this physical form isn't the core of who we are. If we build our whole identity on something so temporary,
We're setting ourselves up for suffering.
right?
It's an invitation to find a more stable ground, something beyond the fragile pot.
And this insight, this understanding they were cultivating, the Buddha knew about it
Yeah.
from hundreds of miles away.
Apparently so. It speaks volumes about the awareness of a fully awakened mind, doesn't it?
It really does. Mind-blowing.
So, from his chamber in Savatthi, 100 yojanas away, the Buddha perceived their progress. And then, the text says, he appeared to them, projecting an image of himself as if he were sitting right there before them.
Whoa. Like a hologram, but divine fed.
Something like that,
Yeah.
radiating light, these 6-colored rays, and he spoke this incredibly potent verse.
Okay, let's hear it. Knowing this body to be like a pot, kumbhamakya, and establishing this mind like a fortress, nagarupamasiddha, fight Mara with the weapon of wisdom, panyavukina yushethamara, and protect what has been won without attachment. Jitanyakaraka and anivesanosya.
Okay, wow. There's a lot packed into that. Let's break it down. First, body like a pot. We touched on it, but how does really getting that on a deep level change things for us, like day to day?
Well, if you truly internalize that your body is this temporary, fragile vessel, like a clay pot, you're less likely to cling to it as your ultimate identity, right?
Right, less obsessed with preserving it at all costs, maybe.
Less fearful of its natural changes, aging, sickness, its eventual breaking. You still care for it responsibly, like you'd care for a useful pot. But you don't mistake the pot for the potter or for what the pot holds. It frees up so much energy from that anxious clinging.
Energy that can be used elsewhere, like building the mind like a fortress, the next part of the verse. What does that mean practically? How do we build this mental fortress? Think about a well-defended city back then. It had strong outer defenses, moats, thick walls, gates, watchtowers. Thieves could just wander in.
Okay.
Internally, it was organized streets, marketplaces, administration. The Buddha's saying, make your insight mind firm and well-structured like that city.
So the walls might be like mindfulness and concentration, keeping distractions out.
Exactly. And the internal organization is the wisdom, the understanding. With this weapon of wisdom, Panyavadina, which includes both the insight for meditation and the wisdom of the noble path, you can fight Mara.
And Mara here isn't literally some external demon, right? It's more internal.
Precisely. Mara symbolizes those internal forces: greed, hatred, delusion, doubt, restlessness, all the stuff that tries to sabotage our progress, pull us away from clarity and peace, the inner defilements.
Our own inner bandits trying to sack the city.
That's a great way to put it. Building the mind fortress is about cultivating the strength, mindfulness, concentration, wisdom to recognize and repel those internal bandits. It's about self-mastery.
Okay, then protect what has been won, what's been won by the monks at this stage. And how do we protect our own, maybe smaller insights or moments of progress?
So what has been won, Jita, refers specifically here to that newly developed insight they gained, especially the understanding of impermanence, the body like a pot insight.
Ah, the ground they've gained.
Yes, and protecting it means actively cultivating the right conditions. The commentary mentions things like finding appropriate places to live or practice, supportive climate, good food, wise friends, staying connected to the teachings.
So nurturing the insight.
Exactly. And also consciously working with it, entering meditative states, emerging, and then contemplating things through the lens of that wisdom, keeping it sharp, keeping it alive, not letting it fade.
Makes sense. And then comes the final line, which feels almost like a twist. Without attachment. Āraddhavipassakabhikkhuvatthu. Why is non-attachment so crucial even to the wisdom and the fortress we've built? Isn't it good to value our progress?
It's absolutely crucial. Āraddhavipassakabhikkhuvatthu means without clinging, without making it a permanent home or settlement. The Buddha uses this brilliant analogy of a warrior.
Okay.
A warrior uses their fortress for protection, for rest, right? But they can't just stay inside indefinitely, clinging to the safety and comfort.
They have to go out and fight sometimes, or the enemy takes over outside the walls.
Precisely. If the warrior gets too attached to the comfort of the fort, the kingdom, the bigger goal will be lost. Similarly, the meditator shouldn't cling to the bliss or the achievement of certain meditative states, samadhi, as if that's the final destination.
Ah, so getting attached even to positive spiritual states can become an obstacle.
Yes, it can prevent further progress. You had to keep engaging, keep contemplating, keep pushing towards the higher paths and the ultimate goal, full liberation. Clinging to the comfort zone, even a very pleasant spiritual one, stops the journey. Never get complacent.
Don't mistake the fortress for the kingdom. I like that.
So the Buddha lays out this whole profound strategy, and his final encouragement was simple. You should do this. Just follow this path.
And the result for the monks, after facing down spectral divas and receiving this deep teaching.
The result was immediate and complete. At the very end of that teaching, while they were still sitting there, all 500 monks attained arahantship.
All 500, just like that.
All 500. Full liberation. And not just that, they also attained the four analytical knowledges, the Paisambidahi, which is this profound, penetrating wisdom and ability to understand and articulate the Dhamma deeply and spontaneously.
Wow. From terrified and sick to fully enlightened arhats with analytical wisdom, that's quite a retreat.
Quite a journey, yes. The text says they were just overjoyed, praising and celebrating the Buddha, honoring his presence and teaching.
What an incredible story. So we started with this group of monks totally freaked out, driven away by fear, literally ill from it. And we ended with them fully liberated, all because they were given and bravely used this surprising weapon.
Loving kindness first, to transform the environment and calm the mind.
Right, the metta.
And then wisdom, to understand the nature of reality, the body like a pot, the mind like a fortress.
It really shows how metta can just completely change a hostile situation, doesn't it? And these metaphors, the pot, the city, they're such powerful ways to think about our own lives, our own minds and bodies.
Absolutely. Understanding impermanence, building mental resilience, using wisdom to deal with our inner morass, our own defilements.
And maybe the most surprising lesson for me is that final point about non-attachment. The need to keep moving, to not cling even to our successes or spiritual highs if we want to reach ultimate freedom.
It's a subtle but incredibly important point. Don't get stuck in the fortress.
Definitely. So as we wrap up, maybe something for you listening to consider. Think about the hauntings in your own life. Maybe they're not headless divas, but perhaps external pressures, difficult situations, or just those persistent internal anxieties and fears. What weapon are you currently using to face them? Could shifting your inner state, first cultivating that metta, that kindness towards yourself in the situation, be the most effective defense, like it was for the monks? And perhaps where might you be clinging to a temporary fortress, a comfort zone, an achievement, even a particular spiritual state that might actually be preventing you from reaching a deeper level of freedom and understanding in your own journey?